Leiden in the Netherlands was the first place where making textile was industrialized. On the picture above left is one of the basic processes, washing out the loose fibers and softening the cloth, so the textile would be easy on the skin. The textile was washed in pee. You can probably imagine that the workers spread a penetrating aroma. For that reason, they worked naked, unlike those on the painting. The work was badly paid and the hours were long. This would be a recurrent theme in the history of the textile industry. On the right is progress. You can notice novelties like photography and machines. This is the first mechanized textile plant in India. My partner, Amit, will tell you more in his part of the story. Textile was always an important political issue. In the Middle Ages, Floris V, Count of Holland, was murdered by members of his own lower mobility because he wanted to shift his loyalty from France, where linen came from, to England, known for its woolens. His murderers were officially tortured to death. The windmill The Cat on the picture made paints and dyes. Windmills made Leiden the world's first industrial town, complete with the filth, the poor, and the labor unrest of later centuries. But industrially made textile was so good that in 1417 the Hanse decided to trade only textile from Leiden. Below the windmill, you can see lead market tax tokens from the city of Leiden, a piece of textile still attached to some of them. Steam replaced wind, driving ever more machines that applied a series of British inventions to mechanized production. Textile provided employment, but at bad wages and conditions. It was better than unemployment, but plant owners had a vested interest in poverty. In Netherlands, as elsewhere, the textile industry concentrated in poor areas, offering plenty of good quality water. Brabant, near Belgium, home of CVT, a textile dyeing partnership, Holland Textile Industry, specialized in carpet making, and Zwagemakers and Bogaerts, spinners. In Twente, near the German border, the largest textile companies produced infamous textile barons. Anton Schmidt made elastic socks and underwear. The Ankersmit family made printed textiles from Africa and Asia. The Van Heek family named their textile empire Schuttersveld, after their indecently large villa with vast grounds. The good guys were the innovators, and the best among them was Jacques Courat-Hartogs. He learned the trade in the British textile giant Courtaulds, setting up his own factory, Enka, in 1913. It expanded quickly after the First World War and was the largest factory in the country by 1928. The expansion was furthered by his friendship with Rento Hofstede Krul, an innovator in the machinery field, who helped with several inventions, notably a spin pot that solved the production problem of static electricity while spinning. Leo Coppens contributed more inventions in the next generation, in particular a device to change the yarn in the spool automatically. Another important development was artificial fibers. Enka floated on artificial silk, Ankersmit on polyester, AS on hybrid yarns. Tenkate branched out to glass fiber weaving, eventually making their company Neverdal a producer of artificial grass. Interestingly, the Van Besouw family of HTI innovated socially. Motivated by the papal encyclic Rerum Novarum, they shared profits with their employees. Decolonization, coupled with very low wages and free trade, meant that the Dutch textile industry was no longer competitive, even when the company dated back centuries. Textile enterprises in Brabant, in the top row, capitulated early on, but the textile makers from Twente in the bottom row resisted. Their first line of defense was political, hindering trade. Meanwhile, they were specializing, innovating, and going into high tech. The tokens on this slide are all for use in coffee machines. Most tokens are likely to have been struck in the State Mint in Utrecht. They were used in vending machines to give the workers access to subsidized coffee. The caffeine jolts suited both workers and bosses. The Ten Kate family brought forth the uncrowned kings of Twente. They were the region's prime strikebreaker, using their political influence to an unhealthy point. Their power was broken by the Second World War and decolonization. King Egbert IV disappeared, and Ten Kate diversified into rubber and plastics. It was not enough. Ten Kate was making technical textiles for the US Army for their wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. When the US involvement there ended, orders tapered off quickly and Ten Kate fell over. It was sold by bits and pieces. The buyer still used the brand name for some Ten Kate successes: matting for infrastructural works, artificial grass, and protective clothing for people with dangerous jobs. Here is a very short case study of the best and brightest textile company, Enka. As I mentioned earlier, the company thrived on artificial silk and technology. It was an international success, becoming the third largest producer in the US and second to Dupont de Nemours only after it took over Courtaulds, where Konrad Hartogs had started out. After the Second World War, which left the company much damaged, it took over the German company Glanzstoff to form Algemene Kunstzijde Unie, the General Artificial Silk Union. When low wages finally caught up with Enka, it merged with Dutch chemical company Koninklijke Zout Organon, or KZO, to form AKZO. Long the third largest fund on the Amsterdam Stock Exchange after Royal Dutch Shell and Unilever. Enka hit upon a winner in the 1970s when it discovered a light textile so strong that it could be used as body armor. They called it Arenka. Unfortunately, Dupont discovered the same thing around the same time, Kevlar. Rather than strike a deal, Dupont decided to fight it out in courts around the world. It was an unequal match. Many countries depended on US arms deliveries, and the Pentagon supported Dupont. Enka was sold to Japanese chemical giant Teijin, which sells Arenka under the name Twaron. Decolonization was a watershed for the global textile industry. The process was hastened by Mahatma Gandhi's use of textile industry for his Swadeshi movement, self-sufficiency, rejecting products made outside India and resulting in a preference for domestically made textiles like khadi. The oil producers wanted time to adjust. Politicians obliged with a series of treaties, the most important of which was the Multi-Fiber Arrangement, or MFA. MFA was basically the right of old producing countries to limit imports from new producing countries. Those limits were called quotas. While producers in the old textile producing countries had a point that they needed time to adjust, they were given far too much time. That killed opportunities for new textile producing countries. When Bangladesh became independent, it wasn't a party to MFA. It was the poorest country on earth at the time, and it scared nobody. So it wasn't covered by the MFA quota. In very little time, Bangladesh became a major textile exporter. It was impractical to hit it with quota also, as it was already clear that MFA would disappear soon. Unhindered textile trading improved the life of uncounted Bangladeshi. All country producers tried to insert workers' rights into the MFA to increase production costs. New country producers fiercely fought against those attempts. After MFA, that came to haunt them. A series of human disasters laid bare cases of workers' abuse and safety issues. Buyers in the US and Europe were held co-responsible in the court of public opinion, even in some courts of justice. The textile industry's large needs of water came to be seen as a climate change risk. Is it really surprising that Dutch clothing supermarket chain C&A opened a large textile factory in Germany? Yes, in Germany, last April. Is the circle closing again? Dear public, thank you for joining us on our trip through time and space to follow the textile industry. A special thanks to Amit Mehta. He does not, or not yet, collect tokens, but his plant makes machines for the textile industry. He made new friends, bought books, and studied them just to entertain you with this story. A big thank you also to John Coy, author of The Catalogue of Dutch Tokens, who provided many pictures, and the Museum Lakenhal in Leiden for the pictures of the paintings used. If you want to know more, visit World of Coins or its sister site, World of Tokens.